I'm Patty Arroyo, the host for the series of 5 episodes on sexual violence across the lifespan. Previously presented was episode 1 on the overview of sexual assault. This is episode 2, and in it, we will focus on sexual assault in children to be presented by Dr. Kirk Bellis, a child psychiatrist who's been working on Guam helping young victims of sexual assault towards recovery. We'll be presenting this series in observance of April as Child Abuse Prevention Month and Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The purpose of this series is to give our viewing audience important information on how to help themselves, their children, families, and friends to identify, understand, and survive rape and sexual assault that affect many families on Guam. As this is a difficult subject to discuss, we will do our best to present this material in a sensitive manner. Many children and families have been exposed to sexual violence, and the best way to work on solutions to the problem is to become better educated and begin an open communication in our community to help end sexual violence. To illustrate the subject for each show, our guest speaker for the episode will give us information about the topic, answer frequently asked questions, and provide a list of resources. The idea for this series came about when the Healing Hearts Crisis Center, Guam's Rape Crisis Center, presented to the Rotary Club of Guam about the serious problem of sexual assault on Guam. In response to that presentation, the Rotary Club of Guam, along with other sponsors and under the direction of the Healing Hearts Crisis Center, decided to create a series of episodes to highlight the problem of sexual violence in our community. The Pacific Daily News published several stories indicating that Guam has 2 times the national average of sexual assault for a community this size. In the aftermath of a sexual assault, the survivors and their families often experience a major disruption in their lives, dealing with the police investigations, medical examinations, and the process through the Office of the Attorney General with a possible trial. Even though advocates are part of the process to assist the victim through all these steps, this is emotionally draining to the victim and their families. This series of episodes will hopefully provide coping strategies to deal with these high-stress issues. Our speakers will be also addressing ways to help victims and families not only recover from this event, but also help the victim heal, as the mental and emotional scars are far more devastating than the physical scars. Let me tell you about the episodes. Episode 1 is on the overview of sexual assault presented by Dr. Ellen Bez and Marissa Uggan from the Healing Hearts Crisis Center, Guam's only rape crisis center. This episode, episode 2, is on sexual assault in children to be presented by Dr. Kirk Bellis. Episode 3 is on sexual assault in teens to be presented by Dr. Juan Rapadas. Episode 4 is on sexual assault in adults to be presented by Letitia Piper from Guam Legal Services Corporation. And the final episode 5 is on self-care and how to take better care of ourselves, especially in times of stress, to be presented by Dr. Pat Timinglow. Tonight's episode 2 is on sexual assault in children and will be presented by Dr. Kirk Bellis, child psychiatrist. This video on child sexual abuse highlights some major issues for parents.
Hi parents, listen up. I'm going to teach you something. I know I'm just a kid, but this is a serious subject, so listen up.
First of all, parents, there's something that you need to know.
Certain areas of my body are private.
Certain areas of my body are private, and it's not okay for anybody to touch them.
It's not okay for anyone to touch my vagina.
It's okay to talk about your body parts and call them their real names.
Vagina.
And only I can touch it.
I have a head, eyes,
Or my mom.
nose, mouth, chin, arms, penis.
Penis. Girls have a vagina and boys have a penis.
If you don't know what a penis or a vagina is, ask your mom.
Kids need to have good information about their bodies, and that's where you parents come in.
Girls have a vagina, boys have a penis,
And everyone has a butt.
and I assume everybody knows where their butt is.
You might feel a little awkward, but kids like me are totally open to it.
This isn't something to laugh about. It's important. And the more you talk about it, the easier it is.
The more you do it, the easier it is.
Talking about these things is not a one-time thing. It's something you do your whole life.
Parents and kids need to talk to each other a lot.
It's really important for parents to talk to their kids their whole lives.
We kids understand a lot, but we need some help too.
Kids need to know a lot of safety rules, and touching rules are just some of them.
And there are different kinds of touch. There's 3 kinds of touches: okay touches, not okay touches, and confusing touches. There's okay touch, not okay touch, and confusing touch.
This is called education, and it helps stop bad behavior.
It's okay touch if my mom kisses me goodnight. It's not okay touch if the man next door kisses me. Sometimes I see my little sister's vagina, but it would be weird if a babysitter showed me hers. I can see my sister naked, but I don't want to see a lot of ladies naked. One of the most important things is for kids to tell if someone tries to touch their private parts.
Kids need to know that if someone touches them, they can tell their mom. Secrets are never good. This goes for grown-ups too.
It's important for kids to know if someone does touch them, it's never their fault.
It's your fault if you don't clean your room. It's never your fault if somebody touches your private parts.
It's not just about someone touching a kid.
It's never the kid's fault.
No one should ask the kid to touch them.
This is called education, and if we communicate more, we can all do a lot to stop sexual abuse.
So now, parents, if we kids can do it, you guys can do it. Don't just wait for us to tell. It's good to ask questions too.
Now it's up to you guys. You think we can do it? The world isn't perfect, but we can make it better. We can. So I'll see you later. We have some work to do.
When we return from our commercial break, we'll hear from Dr. Kirk Bellis, a child psychiatrist, as our guest speaker. Welcome back. Dr. Kirk Bellis will now discuss child sexual assault. Dr. Bellis is a board-certified child and adolescent psychiatrist specializing in ADHD and bipolar disorder. He's been in private practice on Guam for over 25 years. He was formerly with the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, now Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. In addition to running a full-time clinic, his current professional activities include forensic psychiatrist for the Superior Court of Guam since 1988, medical director, Laddie Treatment Center since 2006. Dr. Bellis is married to attorney Anita Areola, and they have 2 adolescent sons. His hobbies include golf, music, reading, and travel.
Childhood sex abuse or child sexual abuse is a form of child abuse that includes sexual activity with a minor. A child can never consent to any form of sexual activity, and this will frequently occur over an extended period of time. In 9 out of 10 cases, a child sex abuser will know the perpetrator or will be known to the family or the child in some form. When a perpetrator engages with a child in this way, they are committing a crime that can have a lasting effect on the victim. Children are the most vulnerable between the ages of 7 and 13. Children who experience rape or attempted rape in adolescence were about 14 times more likely to experience rape or attempted rape in the first year of college. 1 out of 4 girls and 1 out of 7 boys will be sexually assaulted by the age of 18. Childhood victimization and the outcome of prolonged child sexual abuse has been experienced in the literature and shown that these children will experience low self-esteem, worthlessness, abnormal or distorted uses of sex, and may be withdrawn and distrustful of adults and can become suicidal. The risk factors for childhood sexual abuse are living with one parent, living in a home where there is parental discord, being a product of a divorce, or a home where there is domestic violence. Evidence of sexual abuse has been in the literature for a while. Only about 5 to 15% of those individuals who have strong evidence of penetration will actually show any physical genital injury that is consistent with a sexual abuse. Even those who are abused may not consistently show physical symptoms. Children with sexual abuse are not restricted to just physical contact alone. The abuse can consist of non-contact types of abuse such as exposure, voyeurism, and child pornography. Sexually abused females have about a 5 times greater increase in teen pregnancy, a 3-time increase in multiple sex partners in adolescence, and 2 times the probability of having unprotected sex later in life. Child sex abuse will usually be within the familiar surroundings of the individual. In fact, there's a 3 times more of a chance that the person will be sexually abused by a trusted adult than by a stranger. Child sexual abuse accommodation syndrome. This was first postulated in 1983 by Rollin Summit. The sex abuse accommodation syndrome has 5 components. The first is secrecy. The individual who is abused will have secrecy and will not tell anyone about this abuse because the child will have been told things like, "Don't tell or your mother will hate me," "Don't tell or your mother will kill me or will kill you," "Don't tell because you will be sent away," "You will break up the family," "I will spank you if you tell someone," "I will kill the dog if you tell someone," "I will kill you." This makes the child then feel helpless. This child is now helpless to resist or to complain, so a lot of times they will play possum or fake sleep. There is no place for the child to run, only a place to hide. Third is entrapment and accommodation. The child will learn to accept the situation and survive, and the child will blame themselves. The child is made to feel that if they don't do what the abuser tells them, then the abuser will turn to a younger sibling, so the child will then take on the weight of the abuse in order to protect and not let anyone else get hurt. Fourth is delayed disclosure. Because the child feels conflicted about telling versus not telling, when the story comes out, it is one that is very unconvincing or is hard to believe. There's last, and number 5, the retraction or the reversal of the story. The child will state that nothing has happened, in fact, when there maybe has been some act that has occurred. There's also the hysterias of the large sex abuse in the daycare centers between 1980 and 1990. This caused a lot of people to disbelieve the story of children that was told. It is important to understand that without help, most parents are not prepared to believe their children in the face of convincing denials from a responsible adult. Someone who is in the family circle will have a lot more trust and be not seen as a perpetrator.
Welcome back. In this part of the show, I'll ask Dr. Bellis several questions pertaining to children and sexual abuse. Thank you again for being here, Dr. Bellis. Here's the question. Number 1, what can a parent do to protect the child from being sexually abused?
I think one of the most important things that a parent can do to protect a child from being sexually abused is to keep the child well informed. I think the child needs to understand the difference between a good touch, a bad touch, and who is appropriate to be the person to touch them in these different places. I think it's also important that parents educate children early on about the body and how it changes and develops over time, and that the child's not made to feel ashamed or feel bad about the way their body is growing and changing.
Number 2, what are some of the behaviors one might see in a sexually abused child or adolescent?
Well, there are several, but one of the things that I've seen a lot is a lot of behavioral acting out. These are children who will become aggressive physically sometimes, verbally. There will be changes in their normal sleep patterns, eating patterns, grades will decrease. There will be a lot more interesting individuals that show up in the child's life that the parents have no awareness or know anything about. And so there's a total change in the picture of these children to the point where it becomes unpredictable as to what they will do or how they'll respond in any given situation. But a lot of what I see is just flat out depression, and these children are not able to function well.
And the third question, how would I, as a parent, talk to my child about sex and their changing bodies?
I would make sure that this is done in a very matter-of-fact way so that the child does not feel any sense of embarrassment or feel like they're saying or asking questions that are wrong for them to ask about. I treat the body as something that is very sacred, but it's also something that is their own to rule and to be able to use it in the way that they feel best. But I think it's important to let them know that it does change over time and treat it in a matter-of-fact way. I also would let children lead the way in terms of discussing their changing bodies. I think it's important to let the child ask the questions and then the parent address those questions, but don't jump the gun and try and give too much information before the child is ready to receive it.
And question 4, how do I protect a child from pornographic exposure and sexually explicit material in the media?
I believe that it's a parent's responsibility to watch and to be very vigilant in terms of what the child's exposed to, especially with modern media and the internet. I think there are lots of devices that block certain explicit material from showing up on a child's computer, but also making sure that the parent has an open door policy about viewing whatever the child is looking at on the internet or what they're looking at on Facebook, to make sure they're not getting explicitly sexual material that might be inappropriate, or that the child is doing things like taking pictures of themselves without clothes on. These kind of things need to be monitored very tightly by the parents and looked at to make sure that nothing develops out of it that would be harmful to the child.
Thank you for answering those questions, Dr. Bellis, and thank you for being on this episode. When we return, we'll share our resource list that you can use as a reference. Welcome back. As promised, here is a list of resources where you can seek some help. Healing Hearts Crisis Center and Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, 647-5351. After hours and weekends, call 647-8833. The Guam Police Department Victims Assistance Unit, 475-8620 or 472-8911. Child Protective Services, Department of Public Health and Social Services, 475-2653 or 2672. After hours and weekends, call GPD at 472-8911. Ali Shelter 1 and 2, Catholic Social Services, 649-2533 or 24/7 hotline 648-4673. Tune in next week when our topic will be sexual assault in teens with Dr. Juan Rapadas as our guest speaker.